The kitchen was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I stood there, frozen, staring at the shattered glass figurine on the floor. It was a delicate piece, a gift from my wife Emma on our 5th anniversary. I had always admired its intricate design, so beautiful yet so fragile. But now, as I looked at the jagged shards scattered across the tile, I felt a deep sense of foreboding. Little did I know that moment would mirror the state of my marriage. The news had come to me in the most unexpected way. I had been at work, buried in reports and deadlines, when I received a text from an old friend. "Heard about Emma, you okay?" At first, the words didn't register. I thought it was a case of mistaken identity. But as I probed further, the truth unraveled like a bad dream. Emma had been seeing someone else, a glassblower of all people. My heart raced and bile rose in my throat as I processed the betrayal. The image of Emma entwined with another man, a stranger, filled my mind. I could see them together, laughing, touching, sharing moments that were once only ours. The thought was suffocating. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me and I nearly dropped my phone. How could she do this to me, to us? I remembered the last few months, the subtle changes in her behavior, the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the way she seemed to drift away when I tried to connect with her. I had brushed aside my instincts, convincing myself that she was just busy with work or life. But now, the signs were glaring. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow, a tempest of emotions swirling within me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but it was futile. My heart felt like it was shattering into a million pieces, much like the glass figurine at my feet. I knelt down to pick up the shards, my fingers trembling as I avoided the sharp edges. Each piece felt like a part of my soul, jagged and broken. As I cleaned up the mess, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Emma had always been the one who talked about the importance of trust and commitment. We had built our lives together on those principles, and now they lay in ruins. I felt like a fool for believing in the fairy tale we had crafted. The image of her with another man gnawed at me, and I knew I had to confront her. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed to understand the why behind her actions. The thought of the glassblower, this man who had seduced my wife, brought another wave of anger. Who was he? What did he have that I did? I imagined him, a rugged artist with hands that could shape delicate glass into breathtaking forms. I couldn't compete with that. I was just a regular guy, a corporate drone who worked 9 to 5, while he was a creator, a sculptor of beauty. The jealousy burned deep within me, mingling with the pain of betrayal. I finished cleaning up the shards and stood up, my heart still racing. I looked around our kitchen, the place where we had shared countless meals and laughter. It felt foreign now, tainted by the reality of Emma's infidelity. I knew I had to confront her, to lay bare my heart and expose the wounds she had inflicted. As I walked toward the living room, I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. My mind raced with questions, and I braced myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. I had to know the truth, even if it shattered me further. "Emma," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." Before the storm of betrayal, there was a time when Emma and I were inseparable. We met in college, two idealistic souls navigating the chaos of youth. I still remember the first time I saw her, sitting at a cafe, her laughter ringing like music. She was vibrant, full of life, and I was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. We bonded over late-night study sessions, shared dreams, and a mutual love for art. Our relationship blossomed quickly. We spent weekends exploring galleries and attending concerts, our lives intertwined in a beautiful tapestry of experiences. I remember the day I proposed to her. It was a sunny afternoon in the park, and I had arranged for a picnic. As I knelt on one knee, my heart racing, I could see the surprise and joy in her eyes. "Yes," she exclaimed, and in that moment I felt invincible. We were a team, ready to take on the world together. But as the years passed, the initial magic began to fade. Life, with its relentless demands, crept in. I immersed myself in my career, working long hours to provide for us. Emma, too, was busy with her own job, and as we both climbed the corporate ladder, the time we spent together dwindled. Our once vibrant conversations turned into mundane exchanges about work and chores. We started to drift apart, and I didn't even realize it was happening until it was too late. There were moments that still shone brightly in my memory: our anniversary celebrations, spontaneous road trips, and quiet evenings spent cooking together. But those moments became fewer and farther between. It was as if we were living parallel lives under the same roof, sharing a space but not truly connecting. I often found myself longing for the intimacy we once had, but every time I tried to reach out, I was met with the exhaustion of her daily grind. Despite the distance growing between us, I held on to hope. I believed that we could reignite the spark if we just made the effort. I suggested date nights, weekend getaways, anything to bring us back together. But Emma seemed preoccupied, often brushing off my attempts with a distracted smile, her mind clearly elsewhere. I convinced myself that it was just a phase, that we would find our way back to each other. Then came the whispers of the glassblower. At first, it was just a name, a passing mention during one of Emma's conversations with friends. I had no idea who he was, but the name stuck with me. I remember the day Emma came home excited, telling me about an art exhibit featuring local artisans, including a glassblower. Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, and I felt a pang of jealousy at the passion she expressed. I brushed it off as nothing significant. After all, she loved art, and this was just another creative outlet. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Emma began spending more time at art shows, and I noticed her phone buzzing with messages more frequently. She would often leave the room to answer, her demeanor shifting into something secretive. I told myself it was just her work, but deep down, I felt the seeds of doubt taking root. I thought back to the times we had laughed together, shared our dreams, and built our lives. The fragility of those moments haunted me as I realized how easily they could slip away. Glass, in its beauty, was also delicate, much like our relationship. I had taken our bond for granted, believing it would withstand the test of time, but now it felt as if it had become a thin veil, ready to shatter at any moment. As I prepared to confront Emma, I couldn't help but reflect on the underlying issues that had led her to seek solace in another man's arms. I thought about the loneliness that had crept into our lives, the silence that had replaced our laughter, and the passion that had dulled into routine. The glassblower had become a symbol of everything I felt I had lost, a man who had reignited a spark in her that I had let fade. But I was determined to fight for what we had. I had to understand why she had turned to him, and if there was any possibility of salvaging our marriage. With every step toward the living room, I felt the weight of my resolve. I needed to confront the truth, no matter how painful it would be. Emma, I called again, the urgency in my voice rising. Please, we need to talk now. His name was Lucas, and I learned about him in fragments, each piece cutting deeper than the last. A glassblower, they said, a master of his craft, known for creating stunning pieces that captured light in ways I could never imagine. I could picture him in my mind's eye, an artist with rough hands, working in a studio filled with the warmth of molten glass and the soft glow of flames. I imagined the way he moved, confident and passionate, shaping his creations with an intensity I felt I had lost. The first time I saw one of his pieces was at an art fair Emma had been raving about. I had reluctantly joined her, hoping to rekindle some semblance of connection. As we walked through the crowded tent, I spotted a delicate glass sculpture, a twisting form that seemed to dance in the light. It was beautiful, no doubt, but as I admired it, I felt a pang of jealousy. This was the work of the man who had stolen my wife's heart. I stood back, watching Emma as she approached the display. Her eyes lit up with wonder, her fingers brushing against the glass like it was a precious secret. In that moment, I felt like an outsider in my own life, a shadow lurking on the periphery of her joy. It was as if she had found something in him that she could no longer find in me. I watched as she spoke animatedly with Lucas, who stood nearby, his charm and charisma palpable. I could see the way she laughed at his jokes, how her eyes sparkled with admiration. The sight twisted my gut. As the days turned into weeks, I learned more about Lucas through Emma's conversations. He was not just a glassblower. He was a storyteller, weaving tales of inspiration behind each piece he created. Emma would come home, her face aglow as she described the intricate processes of blowing glass, the way it transformed from a molten state to something breathtakingly beautiful. I could hear the passion in her voice, and it stung. How had I let our conversations dwindle to mundane topics while she was being swept away by another man's artistry? I felt inadequate, as if my own contributions to our life together paled in comparison to the beauty Lucas crafted. I was just a man who worked in finance, crunching numbers and analyzing data. I had lost the ability to inspire Emma, to ignite that spark of creativity and wonder that had once drawn us together. The more I learned about Lucas, the more I felt like a ghost in my own marriage, haunting the edges of a life that was slipping away. The jealousy morphed into a consuming fire. I found myself obsessively researching glassblowing, watching videos of artists shaping their work, mesmerized by the fluidity and grace required in the craft. I wanted to understand what had captivated Emma so completely. I wanted to know why she had chosen to share her heart with him instead of me. But as I watched those artists, all I could see was my own reflection in their work, a reflection of a man who had let his life become mundane. The thought tormented me. I could hear the echoes of our past, the laughter that had once filled our home, now replaced by an unsettling silence. I started to resent Lucas, not just for taking Emma away, but for being a reminder of everything I felt I had failed to be. The day I confronted Emma loomed closer, and I felt the weight of the impending conversation pressing down on me. I knew I had to ask her about Lucas, to understand the depth of her feelings for him, but I also feared the answers I might receive. What if she had fallen in love with him? What if I was too late to salvage what we had? As I prepared for that moment, I couldn't shake the image of glass from my mind. It was fragile, beautiful, and easily shattered. Our marriage had become just like that, a delicate structure that could break with the slightest pressure. I wondered if there was any way to piece it back together, or if I was destined to watch it crumble before my eyes. With each passing hour, I felt more unsteady, the anticipation gnawing at my insides. I didn't want to lose Emma, but I also couldn't ignore the reality of what was happening. I had to confront the truth, and with it, the man who had come to symbolize my greatest fears. Emma. I whispered to myself, steeling my resolve. I need to know where we stand. The moment I walked into the living room, I felt the air shift. Emma was sitting on the couch, her gaze focused on a book, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. I hesitated at the threshold, my heart pounding in my chest as I grappled with the weight of the moment. This was it, the confrontation I had dreaded and yet knew I needed. Emma, I said, my voice steady but laced with an urgency that belied my calm demeanor. We need to talk. She looked up, surprise flickering across her features. Okay, she replied softly, closing the book and setting it aside. There was a fleeting moment of vulnerability in her eyes, and I felt a pang of longing for the woman I had fallen in love with. But I quickly pushed it aside, forcing myself to focus on the task at hand. Is there someone else? I asked, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess myself. My heart raced as I watched her expression change, the flicker of guilt crossing her face confirming my worst fears. Jake. She began, her voice trembling, but I cut her off, needing to voice the pain that had been festering inside me. Is it the glassblower, Lucas? Is that who you've been seeing? My voice rose, fueled by a mix of anger and heartbreak. I had to know the truth, even if it shattered me further. Emma's eyes widened and she looked away, guilt etched into her features. It's complicated, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Complicated, I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. You've been having an affair, Emma. How is that complicated? You chose to be with him instead of me. The hurt in my voice was palpable and I could see the pain it caused her, but I couldn't hold back. I needed to express my anguish, to confront the reality of our situation. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, her voice trembling as she struggled to find the right words. I was feeling lost and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I thought maybe being around someone who creates could inspire me again. Someone who creates. I scoffed, the bitterness flowing from my lips. You mean someone who makes glass sculptures? Is that what it takes to inspire you? I've been here, Emma, trying to connect with you, but you've been too busy running off to him." Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt for the harshness of my words, but I couldn't stop. The floodgates had opened. "What did he give you that I could? What did you find in him?" I demanded, the jealousy clawing at my insides. "Found someone who listened," she said, her voice breaking. "Someone who made me feel alive again. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt like I was fading away in our marriage. I didn't know how to reach you." Her words hit me like a slap. I had been so wrapped up in my own world, so focused on work and routine, that I hadn't seen the signs. I had taken her for granted, assuming she would always be there, content to wait for me to notice her pain. "So you thought cheating was the solution?" I shot back, my voice rising again. "You thought running to him would fix everything. You shattered our trust, Emma. You shattered everything we built together." "I know," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know I've made a terrible mistake, but I didn't want to lose you. I thought maybe if I found a spark, it would translate into our relationship. I was wrong." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of our words hanging heavily in the air. I felt the anger begin to dissipate, replaced by a profound sadness. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but more than that, I wanted to understand. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Emma hesitated, her gaze falling to the floor. I don't know. It started as a connection, something I thought I needed, but now," her voice trailed off, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "Now what?" I pressed, my heart racing as I awaited her answer. "Now I'm terrified of losing you," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to feel something again." The pain in her voice resonated with me, and for the first time I saw the cracks in her facade, the fear, the loneliness, the desperation. I felt a flicker of empathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the devastation of her betrayal. "Emma," I said softly, my voice trembling, "I don't know if I can forgive you for this. You've shattered my trust." "I'll do anything to make it right," she pleaded, her eyes pleading. "I love you, Jake. I want to fix this. Please just give me a chance." The weight of her words pressed down on me, and I felt the gravity of our situation. My heart ached for the woman I once knew, but I also felt the sting of betrayal. The glassblower had come to symbolize everything I feared: fragility, loss, and the end of a dream I had held so tightly. As I stood there, caught between love and betrayal, I realized that the path ahead was uncertain. I had to make a choice, but first, I needed to understand the depth of her feelings and the extent of the damage. "Emma," I said, my voice steadying, "we need to figure this out, but it's going to take time. You've shattered my world, and I don't know how to put it back together yet." In the days that followed that painful confrontation, I found myself lost in thought, reflecting on the fragility of glass, its beauty and its vulnerability. I couldn't shake the image of Emma standing before that glass sculpture, her face alight with wonder. It was a poignant reminder of how easily something beautiful could be shattered, just like our marriage. I began to see glass as a metaphor for our relationship: delicate, intricate, and easily broken. I spent hours contemplating the nature of glass and what it represented. It could be molded and shaped into stunning forms, but it could also be shattered into 1,000 pieces with just a single wrong move. Our love had been like that, something beautiful that had been crafted over years, but it had become increasingly fragile under the weight of neglect and miscommunication. As I walked through our home, I noticed the glass pieces we had collected over the years, each one a memory encapsulated in fragile artistry. There was the vase Emma had bought during our trip to Italy, a swirling masterpiece that reminded me of the romance we once shared. There were the glass ornaments from our Christmases together, each one a testament to the joy we had created as a couple. But now, they felt like ghosts of a happier time, haunting me with their beauty while reminding me of the cracks that had formed beneath the surface. I began to question everything I thought I knew about love and trust. Had I taken Emma for granted? Had I been so focused on my career that I overlooked the emotional needs of my wife? The guilt settled heavily on my shoulders as I realized how my own actions had contributed to her feelings of isolation. I had allowed the demands of life to drown out the laughter, the connection, and the intimacy we once cherished. I decided to confront my own shortcomings. I had become complacent, neglecting the very essence of what had drawn us together in the first place. I had stopped nurturing our relationship, letting it slip into a routine that lacked passion. In the midst of my anger toward Emma for her betrayal, I had to acknowledge my role in the unraveling of our marriage. But as I reflected on the past, I couldn't ignore the present reality. Emma had crossed a line that felt insurmountable. The thought of her with Lucas, the glassblower, gnawed at me relentlessly. How could I trust her again? The image of their laughter together, the joy she had found in him, felt like a dagger to my heart. I could see their connection, the chemistry that sparked between them, and it filled me with an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. One evening, I found myself staring into the dim light of our living room, the shadows dancing across the walls. I picked up a piece of glass art from the shelf, a small, delicate bird that Emma had made in a class years ago. It was beautiful, yet I could see the imperfections in the craftsmanship, the tiny bubbles trapped inside, the uneven edges. In that moment, I realized that both glass and relationships were bound by imperfections. They required care, attention, and a willingness to embrace the flaws. I thought about how glass could be mended, how artisans often repaired broken pieces with gold or other materials, creating something even more beautiful in the process. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to rebuild what had been shattered between us. But it would take time, patience, and a willingness to confront the raw emotions that had surfaced. That night, I sat down with a pen and paper, my heart heavy with the weight of my thoughts. I began to write a letter to Emma, pouring out my feelings, my anger, my pain, but also my desire to understand and heal. I wrote about the fragility of glass and how it mirrored our relationship, and how, although it had been shattered, I still believed in the possibility of mending it. As I crafted my words, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I knew that forgiveness wouldn't come easy and trust would take time to rebuild, but I also realized that love was worth fighting for. I wanted to explore the depths of our emotions, to understand the reasons behind her actions, and to find a way back to each other. When I finished the letter, I folded it carefully and placed it on the kitchen table where Emma would see it. It was a small step, but it felt significant, a commitment to confront our issues and work toward healing. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was willing to take that journey if it meant we could find our way back to a place of love and understanding. The next morning, Emma found the letter. I watched from the other room as she read it, her expression shifting from confusion to hope. I could see the tears welling in her eyes, and I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Maybe we could rebuild piece by piece, like a glass artist restoring a broken sculpture. In that moment, I realized that our marriage was not beyond repair. It simply needed a renewed commitment to understanding, communication, and love. We could become something beautiful again, even if it took time to heal the cracks. The days that followed were a delicate dance of emotions. Emma and I began to navigate the aftermath of our confrontation, cautiously stepping into the territory of honesty and vulnerability. We both understood that rebuilding our relationship would take time, patience, and a willingness to confront the wounds that had been inflicted. Our conversations were raw and often difficult. We talked about the loneliness we had both felt, the ways we had drifted apart, and the moments when we had chosen silence over connection. Emma shared her feelings of isolation, how the demands of our busy lives had made her seek solace in Lucas, a man who had seemingly offered her inspiration and attention. I listened, my heart aching for her pain, but also for my own. I had felt invisible, and in some ways I had let my own neglect create a chasm between us. But as we delved deeper into our feelings, I began to see glimmers of hope. We started to rediscover the intimacy that had once defined our relationship. We made a pact to prioritize each other, to carve out time from our busy schedules for date nights and meaningful conversations. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. One evening, we decided to visit an art exhibit together, the very same one where Emma had first encountered Lucas. As we walked through the gallery, I could feel the tension in the air. I was acutely aware of the significance of the moment, the ghost of the glass blower looming over us. But as we moved from piece to piece, I found solace in the art. I watched Emma's face light up as she admired a particular glass sculpture, a stunning piece that twisted and turned like a flame, capturing the light in a way that left me breathless. "It's beautiful," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "It is," Emma replied, her eyes glistening. "It reminds me of how fragile beauty can be, how easily it can break." Her words resonated deeply within me. We had both learned that lesson the hard way. But in that moment, I also felt a sense of unity. We were two imperfect individuals, willing to embrace our flaws and work toward something greater together. As we continued to explore the exhibit, I found myself reflecting on the symbolism of glass. It was indeed fragile, but it was also resilient. I began to understand that our marriage, like glass, could be repaired and transformed, even after being shattered. We could create something beautiful from the remnants of our past, something that reflected our growth and renewed commitment to each other. That night, as we returned home, I took Emma's hand in mine. "I want us to be stronger," I said, my voice steady. "I want to create a new foundation for our relationship, one built on honesty, trust, and love." "I want that too," Emma replied, her eyes filled with determination. "I know that I hurt you and I'm so sorry for that, but I believe we can rebuild." In that moment, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The road ahead would not be easy, but I was willing to walk it with her. We both understood that forgiveness was a process and that trust would take time to restore. But we were committed to the journey, ready to face the challenges together. Weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely we began to heal. We attended couples therapy, where we learned to communicate more effectively, to express our needs and desires openly. We also revisited the things that had once brought us joy, cooking together, taking long walks, and exploring new hobbies. Each shared moment acted as a balm for the wounds we had inflicted on each other. I began to see Emma not just as my wife, but as my partner and confidant again. The laughter returned, filling our home once more. We created new memories, each one a testament to our resilience and commitment to one another. One day, as I watched Emma working on a new glass art piece in our garage, her hands deftly shaping the molten glass, I felt a surge of admiration. She was creating something beautiful, and in that moment I realized that we were doing the same. Our marriage, like the glass she molded, was transforming into something new and exquisite. As I approached her, I couldn't help but smile. "You're incredible," I said, my voice filled with awe. She looked up, her eyes shining with joy. "We're incredible," she corrected, a smile spreading across her face. "Together." In that moment, I understood the power of love and forgiveness. We had faced the darkness, and instead of allowing it to consume us, we had chosen to rise from it. Our marriage was no longer just a fragile glass sculpture. It had become a masterpiece, crafted with care, understanding, and unwavering commitment. As I stood there, watching Emma shape her glass, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had weathered the storm, and though the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, they no longer defined us. We were creating something beautiful together, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. With renewed hope, I took her hand, intertwining our fingers. "Let's keep creating," I said softly, knowing that together we could face anything.